Living an extraordinary life. Living with an open heart. This is by Roger Teal. The life is joy. Everything shifts and transforms when you activate the awareness that this very instant is love. This is the supreme opening into greater peace, power, and plenty. This is so much more than romantic, emotional, or sexual love. This is divine and unconditional love. It is the ultimate and only reality. It is God in essence and expression, and our highest path is to continually open to greater experiences of this love, so that we might become its instrument and messenger. Love is really who you are. And this love is ready to flow whenever you are willing to give yourself to the opening that is your heart. So if you can just now take that into that sacred place within your soul for a few minutes of contemplation. So how good it is to know that love is that ultimate, powerful, creative, magnificent, transformative energy that we call God, that lives and breathes through us, as us, and around us in every moment and in every place. That we are that opening within our own being as we allow our heart to open and to soar so that we can be right where we are to love others. To bring love to every situation, to bring kindness and joy and happiness, compassion. For I know that that same power is the power that has orchestrated this time together, that we are here by divine appointment in this sanctuary together. I know that it is blessed. I know that Amy is blessed when she gives the message today. I know that our music ministry, the children's church, absolutely every part is divinely orchestrated in complete peace and allows our hearts to open wide. We are here to love. And so together we say, and so it is. Amen. So I really want to introduce Amy. We have a special guest speaker. Amy Papadopoulou, right? Did I say that right? That's a long name. Leads a practitioner corps with Columbus Center, yay, for spiritual living. Is currently enrolled in ministerial training through the Holmes Institute. Amy has served in the military and taught inner city high school kids. Bless you. She has been involved with New Thought since the late 1990s, and for the last 10 years has facilitated classes. And has given workshops and talks across the country. Please welcome Amy. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for that. And yes, it is Papadopoulou. Very good. That's a mouthful. Thank you. I am so happy to be here with you guys this morning. As Lana said, I am a practitioner from Columbus with Reverend Molly's church, and I'm also in ministerial training at the Holmes Institute to be a religious science minister. And Reverend Cece asked me to give the talk this morning, and so what I wanted to talk about is living with an open heart. And I think that the song that the band did from Incubus was divinely orchestrated, divinely perfect. The chorus said, "Whatever tomorrow will bring, I will be there with an open heart." I always thought they said open heart and open mind, but I guess it's open heart and open eyes. So I kind of feel like Spirit set that up, set the stage up as Spirit always does, and we open our hearts and we walk in to life with an open heart and open mind. So that's what I'd like to talk about this morning. And I'd like to start by sharing my story. My story, a little bit about my story and living with an open heart. I was married in 2003 to a wonderful man and had my daughter in 2005. And in 2006, on November 6th, 2006, I just put our daughter to sleep. It was about 7:30 at night, and I get a phone call. And it's my husband's friend saying, "Where's Dave?" I said, "Dave's riding his bike," because that's what he did. He rode his bike for exercise. And he was out on a bike, and he did on a bike ride, and he did centuries, which are 100-mile bike rides. And he was riding his bike. I said, "He's riding his bike." And he said, "Well, do you know where to find him?" I said, "I could probably look it up on my computer where his route is." And he said, "Okay," and he hung up. And I thought, that was strange. And something inside me knew something wasn't right. So I went back to what I was doing. I had dinner in the oven. And then I get a call. We were living in Las Vegas at the time. I get a call from the hospital downtown, University, I think it was University Hospital, and said, "Something has happened. We need you to come down to the hospital." And so I was a practitioner at the time, and I called my teacher, my minister also, and said, "I just got a call from the hospital. Something's happened to Dave. Can you go with me?" So we go down to the hospital, and I call one of my girlfriends, and she comes over and stays at the house with my daughter. And they take me and my minister back into a little room about the size of this area right here. And they closed the door, and there were 4 seats, and I thought, oh, this is not good. And the doctor looks right at me and says, "Your husband has had a heart attack, and he did not make it." And I remember looking at Reverend Cynthia going, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And she said, "Amy, I don't know." And in that moment, my life changed. I was 37 years old. My husband was 38 years old, and our daughter was 14 months old, and he was dead. And I can still feel it in my body. I can still feel it. Not like I did it that night, but I can still feel it as I stand up here and as I tell you my story. And so I go home, and I think the hardest part, when I went home, my girlfriends were there, and they said, we're not leaving, we have our pillows, and they stayed with me. And my family, who's all in Columbus, my mother's in Michigan, my dad, my stepmom were in Columbus, they all flew out the next day, my brother. And I think the hardest part was telling my daughter, she was 14 months old, but she didn't understand, because she was too little, that your dad's gone. I think that was the hardest part. So we did the funeral, and I stayed in Las Vegas for about a year, because they say as a widow, don't do anything for a year. After a year, I said, I need to go home. I need to go home to heal. I need to go home to grieve. I need to go home and raise my daughter. That's the part that gets hard for me, is my daughter. I need to go home and take my daughter and raise my daughter at home. So I moved back to Columbus a year and a half later. I knew I needed to do my grief work, because knowing that this was never going to change. This was never going to change. I remember having times where I would talk to him and I would say, if you just come back, I'll move back to Las Vegas. If you just come back, we'll make everything the way it was before. I'll be a better this, or I'll be a better wife, or I'll be a better this, thinking that it was my fault, knowing that it wasn't my fault. And I was a practitioner. So I knew that it wasn't my fault, but what I found was happening was my heart was closing. It was broken. Not only was my heart broken, but my dreams were shattered. My dreams of living my life with this man, retiring, having him watch my daughter eventually walk down the aisle, graduate from high school, it was all gone. And my heart was beginning to close. And so I moved back to Columbus, Ohio, as Spirit would have it, 3 weeks after they opened the Columbus Spiritual Center. I had no idea they were opening that center. And so I walked in the door, I'll never forget, and Reverend Molly was up there, and she's speaking a language that I could understand. I was so grateful to be there. So, of course, I joined the center, and I met a woman, her name was Elaine, and she was a grief counselor. Spirit, right? So Elaine and I became friends, and she says, Amy, I think I'm going to start a grief group. And she knew my story. And I said, I think that'd be a good idea, but I don't think I want to go. My husband had made his transition maybe 3 years. This has been about 3 years after my husband made his transition. And she's like, you know what, Amy? I think you really should come to the group. I'm like, no, I'm not ready. Because I know, as a good religious scientist, what I focus on is what I get, right? So if I focus on this grief, this pain, this broken heart, my heart is going to break even more. I'm going to even get more grief, more sadness, more overwhelmness. I know that's not a word, but I'm going to use it. Because I had to figure out, how do I cut the grass? I have a baby. He always cut the grass. Of course, my dishwasher quit working. What do I do when my dishwasher quit working? He always used to do that. So I'm thinking, Elaine, I'm not going to go to this grief group. I don't want to go to this grief group because I don't want to cry and I don't want to feel sadness because I don't want to have more sadness in my life. But something, Spirit told me, Amy, you have to go. You have to go. You have to feel those feelings. And I was afraid. I was afraid because those feelings of sadness and grief and hurt, I thought they were going to overwhelm me. I thought I would just be a puddle on the floor, not being able to function. I didn't want to focus on my grief because I didn't want to get more grief. But something about me and my personality is I've always had a lot of courage, which is probably why this is part of my soul contract. I have always had a lot of courage. So I said, okay, Elaine, I'll go. And I went, and it was awful. There were 4 or 5 of us sitting in this room, and it was 2 hours. And she said, tell your story. I couldn't tell my story because I would cry. I would begin to cry, and I would cry, and I would cry. And I would go back the next week. She would say, come back. And I went back, and I could tell a little bit more of my story, and I would cry. And what I learned, and what she taught me, is that to have someone witness your grief is amazingly healing. To watch someone watch you fall apart, which I would fall apart. To have people actually witness me cry in the depths of my soul for the life that I thought I was going to live, that I am no longer going to live, was awful. And I kept going back, and I kept crying, and I kept grieving. And then I joined another support group, and I told my story there. And what Elaine said to me was, you have to wear your story out. You have to tell your story. And I thought, maybe she's right. maybe if I tell my story and I feel my feelings and I cry and I cry and I grieve, my broken heart will transform. It will never be unbroken. But what I learned is that as I felt the pain of losing my husband and my daughter's dad, is that heart that was broken was a heart that was broken open. And as I healed that heart broken open, I realized that my capacity for love opened up. And it wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick, and it certainly wasn't pretty. But I can tell you, standing here today, 8 years later, that my capacity to love has expanded. My ability to stand here in front of you and tell my story without getting that lump in my throat is because I have felt my feelings. I felt those feelings, and I have fallen apart and fallen apart and still sometimes fall apart. So I wanted to start with that story, and I want to go back to that reading that Lana gave to us about Roger Teal and his book, This Life is Joy. It just came out a couple months ago. He talks about, I think it's in here, isn't it? He talks about that in this moment is love. That's what Ernest Holmes taught, that that's only God, and we're God, and God is love. Well, I can tell you, that night when my husband died, I didn't know God as love. And for those years that I didn't do my grief work, I think what happened to me was that as I had this experience, this human experience, as I had that experience and I didn't deal with that experience, it put a buffer between me and the world, put a buffer between me and expressing and experiencing my own divinity. And only until I dove into those feelings, felt them, let them go, and cleaned them out, could I be that open vessel for the divine to come through. And I can see and hear, and I can feel my story is touching your hearts. Some of you differently than others. And I appreciate your willingness to be vulnerable and to be open to that place in your heart that may have been broken, that may still be broken. And I'm here to tell you that there is a place of hope and a place of healing and a place of divine grace that we can enter into. And it takes courage and willingness, and it is possible. It is possible. I want to talk a little bit about grieving. It was my experience that moving through the grief of losing my husband, and then 3 years later losing my brother to cancer of 3 years, and watching him struggle with cancer and being at his bedside with my family as he made his transition, because I have done my grief work, and because of this philosophy, I was able to be fully present at that place with him as he made his transition. And it's because I've done my work, and I continue to do my work. And I think sometimes in religious science circles, we don't want to go into those places where that feels yucky or sad or bad, because what we focus on is what we get. Change your thinking and change your life. And I think it's that easy, but I don't think it's always that simple. I think there are some times where we need to go in with our dustpan and broom and clean it up. And I think that as spirits having a human experience, sometimes the humanity of living in this world takes some cleaning up and forgiveness. We won't even go into forgiveness work. But forgiveness and grief and love and awareness and grace allows us to open those hearts, open our hearts for more of the divine to come and flow in and through and around us. We teach that here, that it's only God and it's only love, and, not a but an and. Sometimes we need to clean up the residue that happens when we live this life. It's the moments of my high resolve. Keep before me my moments of my high resolve. Howard Thurman, and he talks about the grit and the grime of this life. As that sticks to us, I think about as we clean it up, feel the feelings, let it go, so we can tell a different story. Because our lives are made up of the stories that we tell. And the stories that we tell are based on the beliefs that we have gathered about ourselves and about others. Our stories can either keep us trapped, victims, the first stage of consciousness, or we can tell our stories and we can tell our stories and we can tell our stories and we can tell our stories until we've told them, until we've worn them out. And only when they get worn out can we lay them down and we begin to feel a new story. We begin to tell a new story. We begin to feel a new life. It's that life of the divine. It's that promise, the grace and the love and the wisdom that we were born here as. But it's these stories that we tell that we need to wear out sometimes. A couple of stories that I worked on as I was doing my grief work, and I continue to work on. The first one I tell is the reason I can never get ahead. And I'll even just invite that. I'll just say that just for a moment. Imagine how you would answer the story or finish the sentence. The reason I can never get ahead is, we can all fill that in. Mine, the reason I can never get ahead is I am now a single mom. Never thought I was going to be a single mom. The reason I can never get ahead is because every night, I might cry, every night when my daughter goes to bed, it's me. There's never anybody else. My parents, yes, but her dad is never here. I can never get ahead because I have a child to raise, I have a house to take care of, I have a life to live all by myself. And I told that story, and I beat that drum for a long time until I felt those feelings and told that story and told that story, and now I tell a new story. And in Roger Teal's book, he talks about those stories that we tell, the old, the cold, the told stories, and we transform those into the bold and the gold stories. And so now my bold and gold story is the reason I will reach my soul's purpose. And the reason I will fulfill my soul's dream is because I've had the experience of losing my husband and my brother. And these stories have led me, these experiences have led me to a place where my heart has been broken open for a larger capacity to love. I couldn't have given this talk. He's been gone 8 years. I couldn't have given this talk 5 years ago, 4 years ago. I had to do my work. But today I can tell it. And I can say that I am in ministerial school now. I'm not letting that idea of being a single mom or losing my husband or having to live my life by myself hold me back. I'm living my soul's purpose. I'm living my soul's dream. That bold and that gold new story. So I invite you to think about the stories that you tell. the stories that we all tell. And where is it that story is an old, cold, told story that we need to tell just for that last time? And that is, as practitioners, we're trained to hear those stories and to look for the bold and the gold in them. So I invite you to call a practitioner this week, to seek out prayer after service, to find a friend. If you need a grief group, get to a grief group. Tell that old, cold, told story for the last time. Allow yourself to tell that bold and gold story, because that's why you're here. Your soul has a dream. Your soul has a purpose. And to get out the pan and the dustpan and broom and clean up those cobwebs. Clean it up so your soul can fulfill its dream, so God can shine forth through you, so you can feel the grace that is the truth of who we are with that capital T. So you can feel the love for yourself and for others that we were born here to feel, to know the wisdom and the prosperity, to remember the truth with a capital T about who we are. Sometimes it takes some cleanup, and sometimes it's not pretty. And you know what? That's okay. And our centers for spiritual living across not only the country, but also the world, I think that these are amazing places in consciousness. Because what I know about the one, because there really is only one expressing here, is as we do our work, as I do my work for my daughter. And I do my work for all of the other people who have lost, who will lose. Because there's only one, and we can't help but for it to ripple out. We teach that God is love. We teach that there is only God. And we are spirits having a human experience. Where are you telling the old, the cold, and the told stories? Where are the bold and the gold stories? To let that heart break wider open, to have a larger capacity for love. I'm grateful. I remember telling Reverend Cynthia that night of November 6th, 2006, in University Hospital in Las Vegas when they told me that my husband was dead. I remember looking at her and going, I don't know why I'm grateful, but I know I'm grateful. And sometimes I still don't know why I'm grateful, but I know I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to feel your love. I'm grateful to be part of this beautiful community. I'm grateful that Reverend Cynthia asked me to come and speak. I'm grateful that my daughter's with me. And someday I'll know exactly why all of this happened. Today I don't know why. But I do know how it can serve me, and that is for my heart to be broken open more, for a larger capacity for love. So in closing, I'd like to pray. So please join me now, if it's comfortable for you. Let's just all breathe. Take a deep breath in. For I know that that energy that is breathing me is the energy of the one. The energy of the divine, the energy of life, the energy of love, the energy of grace, and the energy of God. That is all that there is. So I open in this place right here and right now, remembering who I am. And what's true for me is true for each and every person here this morning, hearing my voice. That there is only one having its experience here, and that one is God. And that one is expressing and experiencing not only here in CSL Greater Dayton, but also in each CSL community across America. And also that God energy, that one is expressing in each Christian church this morning as they meet. For it is only one energy, one life expressing. This is also true for each and every person on the planet. That we are all interconnected by the one life, the one web. And what I know about this one is that it is love. It is a greater capacity to love, to live, to breathe and move and have its beingness. And so it's from this place of remembering that I speak my truth. I speak my truth on behalf of each and every one here this morning, knowing that those hearts that have been broken open to have a larger capacity for love, for loving ourselves, for loving each other, for loving this world, for seeing the wholeness, the perfection, the grace and the wisdom. That is the truth about us. That is the truth about me. That is the truth about you. I claim this on behalf of each and every person here right now. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all that is. I'm grateful for all that is not, because I know that God is right in the middle of all of it, orchestrating it, knowing it, loving it. And so I allow God. I say yes to allowing more God in, as, and through me right now. Right now. Right now. Oh, it is good, and it is God. And so I release this treatment into the law that only knows that yes. Only knows that yes. I let it go. I let it be. And please join with me in saying, and so it is.
I am just a thread, a simple thread in this glorious web of life. We are all just drops within a stream flowing towards an ocean of light. We may forget where we come from. We may forget where we're going to. I might not see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. I'm just a seed, a blessed seed with eternity unfolding in me. And I pray that as I grow, I will reveal the love that illuminates my soul. When I remember where I come from, when I remember then I will see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one.
So let's take a moment now to think about all of our blessings, to be grateful for all that we have, all that we are, and all that we give from. Think about all that you receive from the love that is all around you. And let yourself be safe within your heart, safe to feel the gratitude as it rises up within you. And as the offering basket is passed through your hands, please allow yourself to feel the feelings of abundance and bless our whole community. And please affirm with me right now, gratefully, I give with an attitude of abundance.
Gratefully, I give with an attitude of abundance.
I know that as I give, so do I receive.
I know that as I give, so do I receive.
And so it is.
And so it is.